It has been an eventful week, first week of the year, on both sides in the Democratic and Republican Party. As I say, less than a month to when the first votes are cast in Iowa. So I'm going to ask you a classic week in review question to start things off. Ben, of all the action in your party this week, what has struck you as most significant politically?
The circular firing squad, where the people who are more or less in the establishment lane are all shooting at each other, and then the dust-up with Donald Trump and Ted Cruz.
Ben,
the battle is engaged.
Do you think in that?
I was going to say.
Hold on, Steve. Just wait one sec. Ben, do you think in that Donald Trump's Ted Cruz dust-up, does anybody clearly have the upper hand there?
Well, I think Donald Trump has managed to inject some questions about Ted Cruz that were not injected before. Always an issue about whether it goes too far, but yeah, I think he brought some new things into the debate.
Steve, give me a sense of your week in review question. Democratic side, most significant thing of the week.
The most significant thing of the week, I think, when you watch Senator Sanders start to tangle with Hillary Clinton on Wall Street reforms, it's the first we've really seen of an aggressive Bernie Sanders. And I think the other thing that's going to be interesting to watch is whether NBC decides that Martin O'Malley isn't at the level that would enable him to participate in the debates. They put out a qualification statement that basically says if you're not at 5%, you can't participate. He's not. I think it would be a mistake for NBC and for the DNC to not include him, but we'll see what happens.
All right, you two gentlemen are going to have to hold on for 1 second, because I got to go down to Mark Halpern, who has a special guest with him in South Carolina. That would be Jeb Bush.
Yeah, we're here at Dyer's Diner. Governor Bush has got an event here, and he's going to come. Oh, and look who it's here. It's Jeb Bush. Governor, you know what they have here? They've got meat and 3. You like that, right?
This is all good.
Yeah.
And you get to cheat on the paleo diet, and I might be cheating tonight.
How's everything going here in South Carolina for you?
It's going well. It's going well. We've gotten a lot of support. People are picking up. Lindsey Graham is a good friend. A lot of his supporters are coming our way, and I just feel good about it.
This state has always looked to somebody with a strong record on national security, and you've talked about that throughout the campaign. Do you feel like there are clear differences between you and, say, Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz on the issues of national security? Is it more about leadership record as opposed to issue positions?
I think it's more about leadership than anything else, but there are differences, and I think it's healthy to discuss them. I do think that America's leadership in the world and engagement is important. When Donald Trump talks about 45% tariffs on China, and then in the same day says that China needs to take care of the North Korea situation, I mean, that, apart from just being completely silly and dangerous, it also shows a lack of belief that the United States should lead. And we have to lead. It's in our national security interest to do so.
When you come to this state, does it feel political culture feel different than New Hampshire, where you were for the last couple of days?
Look, this is the amazing part of our country. The first 4 states, you can't find 4 different states, Nevada and New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina. It really makes it's a rewarding experience, because this extraordinary country, we have shared values, but we're really different in so many ways.
How's the confidence level in the Bush family? We were talking about the kids, the candidates before. The Trump kids have been out and about. Your sons in particular out campaigning. How are they feeling about things here in the home stretch?
They're feeling good, and they're encouraging their dad to feel good about it too, which is their job.
All right, before you go, I want to ask you the question I like to ask is, do you still have full confidence in Tim Miller?
No, he's on the line. He's got to have a good night tonight, or he might just get canned.
It's going to be his last night on the campaign?
Could be.
All right. That's for people who follow this campaign closely, because having confidence in Tim Miller is something that ebbs and flows. Governor, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you at your event later.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you. John, take it back to our guest, who I'm sorry we interrupted, but we figured we'd want that.
That's all right. You can interrupt for Jeb Bush anytime. Ben, Steve, let me ask you this question, just because we just had Governor Bush on. That was a surprise visit, by the way. Didn't know it was about to happen. Jeb Bush, Ben, dead or starting to show new life? Still, I should say, still dead, as everyone had presumed for the last couple months, or is he starting to show some new life?
Well, first of all, let me say I have confidence in Tim Miller. I think there's always been life there.
You're the only one, Ben. You're the only one.
He used to be a client. I think there's always been life in Jeb Bush. I think when the voting starts, it is a time when he needs to shine really, really quickly. I've never thought that he was dead.
Steve, what about you? Jeb Bush, any sign, any pulse there, or is rigor mortis setting in?
Well, there's no discernible pulse, but I actually agree with Ben. I think that voters have a way of focusing in when the choice gets nearer and more significant. And I think Republican voters especially, who are used to kind of picking the next person up, are, trained to do that. Jeb Bush, if you look at him by qualification, is probably the most qualified person in the Republican Party running for president to be the president.
Right.
I don't understand why his campaign hasn't gone better. If he showed a little more like he just did on this program, I think he probably would be doing a little bit better. But I don't think he's dead at all.
Ben, you used the phrase that at the start of this block. You said something about a circular firing squad. That's mostly on the establishment side, although it's pretty much throughout the party right now, your party. Circular firing squad, the metaphor means basically everyone dies. I presume you don't think everyone's going to die in this case. So who's left standing at this point, if you had to gauge, who are the likeliest to end up on the floor in a pool of blood, and who's likely to remain upright when this is over?
Well, I do think there are going to be 3 lanes coming out of February. And I think there's going to be a Trump lane, and I think there's going to be a conservative lane that certainly looks like Ted Cruz still standing. And then there'll be the establishment lane, and that's the tough one. I mean, right now you would look at it and say John Kasich and Jeb Bush have the biggest challenge to get out of it. Marco Rubio seems to have the greatest support amongst at least the donor class, but he's going to have to show that he merits it.
Right. Steve, let me ask you a question on a slightly different topic, which relates to a big story that's been going on now for a couple weeks. Donald Trump going after Bill Clinton's personal life in increasingly vitriolic, unprovoked, florid ways. Smart for Trump, dumb for Trump. And from the Clinton standpoint, good for the Clintons, bad for the Clintons?
So in a Republican primary, where vitriol aimed at Democrats and particularly Democratic icons seems to be rewarded. I mean, think about the attacks on President Obama that have been fairly common over the last several years, and how much Republican voters have rewarded that. I think the Clintons are in that same category. There are a lot of Republicans who just don't like him, never have liked him, and love it whenever somebody like Donald Trump comes along and does this. Now, so is it smart politics for him in his primary? I think it probably is. Is it effective for him as a candidate for president in a general election? I don't think it is. This is already built into the value of the stock, if you will. People have already reached a judgment about Bill Clinton, and he's the most popular politician in America today, or certainly one of them. So for Donald Trump, who's got a favorability of about 35, to be attacking a guy with a favorability of 70 is not very smart if you want to win a general election.
All right, so Steve, real quick, like, is this bad for the Clintons or good for the Clintons in like 10 seconds?
I think it probably helps Hillary, because it wasn't Hillary's sin that he's being critical of. She's just kind of an innocent bystander, and I think people see that, and that's the way they view it. All
right, Ben, I'm going to close with you. I'm going to give you 15 seconds for this. Is there a problem for Ted Cruz on a legal grounds that you can see in terms of the fact, is his birth in Canada, does it actually pose any real legal problems in terms of his eligibility to be president?
No, I don't believe there are any legal problems. The Supreme Court's never ruled on the issue, but it will not be a problem for him in the campaign. The political damage that may come from raising issues about the veracity or the authenticity of his stand on immigration is a possibility, and the sort of reminding people that he's Cuban the way Trump is to single him out could have an impact.
Right. Okay. Ben Ginsberg, Steve McMahon, thank you for doing it. Thank you for hanging in there while Jeb Bush hogged some of your limelight. We'll have you back real soon. Thanks to Jeb Bush for making that stop and talking to Mark. Really grateful for that. So up next, our own reporters, some of the very best of them, tell us what it is that they have been reporting over this past week after this.